do a government-led program where, who knows how that's going to go. But it's all cash pulled out of our company that we can't then invest. I mean, in 12 years, we've gone from 12 employees, we were at a high of 450, now we're, call it 375. You can't have that sort of growth from a big business. That's a small business thing. And we can't do that if all of our money is going into paying for health care.
Who is, when you look at this board, and I want to get into it here in a second. I wrote over here, first of all, that I think, raise your hand if you agree with this, that our government now seems to be a government of just special interest. Doesn't seem to be a government of we the people, right? If you're in the right company or you're in the right special interest, if you're in the unions, you're in big finance, you're a giant corporation which has big unions, or you're in a favored group or industry, you'll be fine. When I was trying to look at the stimulus package, I thought, why wouldn't you go to the list of the most successful small businesses in America and then pour the money into those businesses? If you're going to do a stimulus, how about looking for those companies that are growing instead of pouring the money down the drain from businesses that have screwed everything up?
We don't want a handout, but GM, I think the number was $64 billion that was invested into them. You could have given 64,000 small businesses $1 million. Can
you imagine what that would have created? What would the bowling alley do with the mill? Well, you'd pay extra for health care.
More bowling alleys.
You'd build more bowling alleys. Is there anything on this list that needs to be added? Because this is the pressure that I see in my business. I see taxes going up that are, crushing. Just the taxes alone are going to be crushing. Healthcare, crushing. Cap and trade, crushing. Slow down just in the business world. Just the way it just is naturally happening. You have regulation. Who you can hire. Who you can fire. I don't know about anybody else, but sometimes we try to hire very, very carefully because once you hire them, you ain't firing people. Is that a problem for anybody else? How about the litigation? The workforce alone. There's a lot of jobs that Americans just won't do. That pisses me off. Is anybody else try to hire people for good jobs and they're either not educated enough or they're lazy and they won't do it? And so you're sitting here saying, sometimes you'll have to hire 2 people because the person you hire just won't do it, or you can't keep that person. You got to see it in the restaurant business a lot.
We had to start our own ESL class programs.
I'm sorry, you had a what?
We started our own ESL program, English as a Second Language, to just allow people to move up. And you just talk about, people coming in an entry-level position. Only certain people want that job. We pay good wages, pay more than minimum wage. And then to promote from within, we would start our own program and our own training programs inside. Our biggest thing that I think that's missing on the list that we see is credit. There's a lack of credit.
Oh no, they say they've made all those loans to the banks.
Right. But so the banks have it. We run a successful business. We want to open another restaurant. We could create 225 jobs if we open another restaurant.
May I ask you a question? I'm going to go back and then we have to take a break. I want to go back to the question on, you started an English as a Second Language program. Is there anybody here that doesn't want more legal immigrants in this country? Because legal immigrants, people who work to get here and do it the right way, are a lot of times better than the Americans who have lived here for generations and just expect it all to be handed to them. Is there anybody here that disagrees with that statement? We're playing a game, America, and you're not hearing the truth on any of this stuff. If you're sick of the government destroying small businesses and fundamentally transforming this country, you're not alone. If you feel that way, sign up for my free email newsletter at glennbeck.com. Back for some more common sense in a minute. Welcome to our special on the death of small business in America. Small businesses are responsible for the bulk of jobs in this country. 70% of the jobs are created by small businesses, and yet you never, ever hear anyone talk about them on television. Oh, you might see them on a business network here and there, but you most likely, if you're working in America, work for a small business, and the small businesses I could say are dying. I think they're being killed. Here now are Wall Street Journal senior economic writer Stephen Moore. Danny Babshi is a frequent guest of Your Questions, Your Money, a live call-in show on the Fox Business Network, and Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Stephen, let me start with you. You call something the triangle of evil.
Right.
What is it?
Well, you've got three major pieces of legislation coming down the pike that we've been talking about. Health care, the cap-and-trade bill, and this union card check issue, and the victims of those are all small businesses. And, you know, let's take health care for a minute. How are they going to fund that $1 trillion bill, Glenn? Payroll taxes on small businesses as high as 8% on every small business here. And then they're going to raise the income tax 5 percentage points on, quote, the rich. Now, the people who are rich, 70% of those people are small business owners and operators. Right. Now, you ask the question, why don't these members of Congress get it? Why doesn't Nancy Pelosi get it? Why doesn't Barack Obama get it? Because they've never run a business. They have no idea what it means to make a payroll. I mean, they are lawyers and community organizers. So that they really believe, folks, that members who run small businesses are like ATM machines. You just pluck dollars out of them.
Because that's the way they run their business. They do.
Right.
They just pluck it off out of the basement, off of a machine. Mike.
See, I don't believe a lot of people realize what small businesses do in order to make it. I mean, we have to mortgage our houses. We have to go to loans from family and friends. When money doesn't come in, we're the last people to get paid. So a lot of people never really appreciate what we do. Yeah, at the end of the year, we may make a little more money, but what about when we don't have the cash flow? We are by far the last people to get paid. It's our children the last people to be taken care of. Everyone else gets taken care of first.
The number one question that my partner John Rutledge and I take on the weekend show, entrepreneurs calling in for 2 hours asking questions. Number one is, how do I get money in this economy, in this market? Why are the banks turning me down? Why is the Small Business Administration not backing loans that they said that they would back? And why, if they will, are banks unwilling to do the loan, even if they put up their personal collateral? That's the number one question.
By the way, I have an answer to that. When the federal government is borrowing $2 trillion, it's hard for small businesses to get credit.
But Stephen, explain something to me, because I had one of my financial advisors explain this to us. He's a guy who's been in global finance for a long time, and he said that here's where the economy was, and then we've been bailing out all of this money. We're about here now. This is where it should be, right? Let's say just housing, okay? So we've bailed out and filled this space, all of this space, with the cash that we've borrowed, okay? Right? Now, it still has all of this space to go, and that's if it just goes to historic norms. It's most likely going to go someplace down here. So we have to come up with all of that cash. He told me the reason why the banks don't loan to people is because, and I barely understood it, and you'd be the guy to explain it. The way the interest rate they're charging right now, they're making the money here, and they're trying to make it over a long period of time to cover all of this money. Does that make sense to you? Can you explain it?
Who wants to lend money to businesses when there's no consumers out there who want to consume this stuff? I mean, my God, Glenn, that $800 billion stimulus bill in it, there was more money for the National Endowment for the Arts than there was for small businesses. I mean, this is craziness.
Well, you know, the government is run by people who have a couple of attitudes that probably no one in this room shares. One of them is government knows best. And the other is...
Does anybody believe that?
No. Well, of course not. I mean,
they do in Washington.
They do in Washington. I mean, there are so many historic and contemporary examples of that. The government runs Social Security, bankrupt. Medicare, bankrupt. Medicaid, bankrupt. The Post Office, bankrupt. Amtrak, bankrupt. Now, of course, they want to start running the healthcare system, and it'll be bankrupt, too.
Okay.
So that's the first mentality, that government knows best. The second mentality is, if we can do something to make you feel better in the short run, even if we take your freedom of choice away, the vast numbers of people will give us what we want more than anything else. Re-election.
Okay, I'm going to take a break here, and you brought up the post office. The post office had a problem with efficiency. People were standing in line too long. You know what their solution was? Take the clock off the wall. I'm not kidding you. That's true. How many of us would be in business if we did that to our consumers? The other thing, when we come back, Congress and the White House, I know, watch this program every day. These people are going to give the White House and Congress an earful what they need to hear.